Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Business, Finance, and Justice Committee meeting on March 17th, 2022. I call this meeting to order at 3:00 p.m. Invocation, Representative Randolph, if you would do the honors, please.
Lord, we're thankful for another day, Lord. Thankful for the watch care through the night, Lord. Thank you for all the beauty that you put around us. Thank you for your love, your mercy, and your protection. Ask that you guide and direct us in all that we do, Lord. Say all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Randolph. Roll call. Legislative Clerk April Lindsay.
Patrick Freeman. Here. Sandra Golden. Randall Hicks.
Present.
Thomasine Yohola Osborne.
Present.
Mark Randolph.
Present.
Madam Chair, you got 4 present and 1 absent.
We have 4 present and 1 absent. This constitutes a quorum. All business conducted will be valid. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. I'll give the committee time to review and entertain a motion when the committee is ready.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve the minutes with any changes necessary.
Second.
We have a motion from Representative Hicks to approve the minutes of February 17th, 2022 with any changes necessary. Representative Randolph seconded the motion. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
You're on there. Madam Chair, you got 3 in favor and 0 against.
We have 3 in favor, 0 against. The minutes of February 17th, 2022 have been approved. Next item on the agenda is order of business. NCR 22-003, a resolution of the Muskogee Creek National Council selecting Jackie Jackson to the Board of Directors of Muskogee Nation Gaming Enterprises, LLC. Sponsor, Patrick Freeman, Jr.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
We have a motion from Representative Freeman to postpone indefinitely. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Hicks. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 3 in favor and 0 against.
We have 3 in favor, 0 against. NCR 22-003 passes. NCR 22-004. A resolution of the Muskogee Creek National Council selecting Cynthia M. Tiger to the Board of Directors of Muskogee Nation Gaming Enterprises, LLC. Sponsor, Anna Marshall.
Madam Chair, motion to postpone indefinitely.
We have a motion from Representative Hicks to postpone indefinitely. Do I have a second? We have a second from Representative Freeman. Discussion? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 3 in favor and 0 against.
We have 3 in favor, 0 against.
Didn't give it to the most senior member. There she is.
And just to let the audience know, for those 2 previous NCRs, a NCR number was attached to those, and so they were active bills. So we had to bring them to the meeting today so that we could act on them. At this time, I relinquish the chair to Vice Chairman Golden.
Apologize for being late. I was on the phone with, for a citizen, and so I'm here. CR 22-046, a tribal resolution of the Muskogee Creek Nation confirming the nomination of Geraldine Jerry Wisner to serve as the Attorney General of the Muskogee Creek Nation. Sponsor, Thomasine Yahola Osborne.
Chairman, I make a motion for due pass.
We have a motion for due passed. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Randall Hicks. Ms. Osborne?
Ms. Wisner, if you'll come to the podium, please. If you'll just give us a brief summary of who you are and what you're about.
Thank you. Tahoe Tifkados, Jerry Wisner, Muskogee Obnagan, Keithley and Comas. My name is Jerry Wisner, and it is an honor and privilege to be in front of you this afternoon. I am from Welika. My mother is Tony Wisner. She retired from the Children and Family Services a handful of years back. My father's Mike Wisner. My grandfather is Bill Burton, who served many years on council. And it was through him that I had an early exposure to the three branches of government and the responsibility of tribal members to not only take care of our families, take care of our people, but take care of our nation. After high school, I entered the United States Marine Corps in 1998, where I received an honorable discharge. I was able to see the world, and through that, I also recognize that the church where I go, Hajijaba, and also my stomp grounds, that there is no place like home. There is no other corner of the world that has our people, our beliefs, our traditions, and our language. So I came back to Oklahoma to try to make a difference. I got my bachelor's at the Oklahoma State University, and I knew that wasn't enough. If anyone knows me, they know what I like to do. I like to fight. My mother's a large woman. I learned early on that the jokes, your mother's so big, well, I never heard the end of it because I was always fighting. But I had some good people around me to guide me and say, find something good to fight for. So I did that. I started off thinking I was going to be a defense attorney, having a lot of family members being on the defendant's side and seeing a lot of our Native people disproportionately arrested or on the wrong side of the justice system. As I practiced, I realized as a prosecutor, I could do more than just a jail and or a fine. Our people need healing. And we have that prescription within the Muskogee traditions. Our people, we have the remedy for the things that are wrong with our people. We just need the opportunity to be able to exercise that. As a prosecutor, I could make those recommendations rather than putting juveniles in jail, finding their families, or adults, putting them in jail, finding their families. There are alternatives to healing our people and finding justice. I have been a prosecutor for approximately 20 years. And just recently, I have also been serving as the Attorney General for the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska. My passion is behind justice, by doing our people right, and getting things and helping. Either it is a give back, being humble, and being true to who we are as Native people. I am very excited about the McGirt decision. I'm excited because I think of the McGirt decision as an opportunity for the Muskogee tribe to flex our sovereignty. Our sovereignty being that which is given to a government or an entity recognized for their own sovereign status, their government, their ability to govern themselves. I think of the McGirt decision and sovereignty like a muscle. It needs to be flexed. We have this opportunity to be able to flex that jurisdiction, be able to help our people, be able to also heal our people. But we have to be knowledgeable. We have to be on our feet as the Muskogee people to be able to get in line. What is that justice? And how are we going to be the leaders in taking that justice and the recognition of our reservation status to that next level? That is our responsibility. And leaders of the tribe, I'm very excited to be able to help flex that muscle and exercise what will be those next steps to recognize our sovereignty, to exercise that justice. It could be in the exercise of taxes, the taxation issues of our tribal members. What better way than to exercise jurisdiction? It doesn't have to be criminal, it doesn't have to be civil. The fact that we have a reservation, we should be exercising that. I would love to forward that on behalf of our tribal members to make that opportunity where our reservation status also is inclusive of a tax status. Other things that could come along, the potential for driver's license, the potential of all types of things. The vision of this council, along with the muscle of the Attorney General's office, can get us to those next steps. It would be an honor and privilege, as well as a duty and responsibility, to serve the Muskogee Nation as your Attorney General. Meadow.
Thank you, Ms. Wisner. Any questions from committee members? For Ms. Wisner? Anyone online? No questions? So we'll call for a vote.
Thomasine Yohola Osborne,
Yes.
Patrick Freeman,
No.
Randall Hicks,
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you've got 3 in favor and 1 against.
3 in favor, one against. Ms. Wisner, this will be passed on to the National Council for final vote. So it'll be the 26th in the morning at 9 o'clock at our pre-planning session. Thank you.
Meadow.
Madam Chair, I return your seat back to you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Golden. TR 22-047, a tribal resolution of the Muskogee Creek Nation confirming the nomination of Jeffrey Fife to serve as a Chief of Staff of the Muskogee Creek Nation, sponsor Darrell Proctor.
Madam Chair, motion do pass.
We have a motion for due pass from Representative Hicks. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Randolph. Discussion? Representative Proctor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we have Acting Chief of Staff Jeffrey Fife. We'll give him time to speak.
Thank you, Representative Proctor. Mr. Fife, if you'll come to the podium, please.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Representative Proctor. About myself, I've been involved with the government for 20 years or so. It began with law enforcement with a light horse, police, patrol officer, moved from there to a legislator, and then I've been involved as a Secretary of Interior, now acting Chief of Staff for Principal Chief Hill. That span of time has allowed me to work with and for 4 principal chiefs: Chief Fife, Chief Beaver, Chief Ellis, Chief Tiger, and now Chief Hill. I think my experience in education qualified me to serve the chief well, understanding of sovereignty, understanding of self-governance. The challenges ahead of our people are extreme. And I believe I can work with this legislative body as well as the chief to advance our government, to put us in a position where we are leaders again in Indian country. Every issue that has come about in Indian country in Oklahoma has started here. Gaming, tobacco, now McGirt. There's great opportunities ahead of us. I make no mistake when I say this. The work is tremendous. I bring energy to the chief, to the government. You know, I took the last 2 years to finish my master's in business administration. That's an important goal in my life. And when Chief visited with me about this opportunity, I felt I could help. So I would leave that with you. I do believe I can help. Felt somewhat concerned when I was with the Light Horse Commission. That body had asked me to serve prior to visiting with Chief Hill. That body is an important body of this government's future. So it was difficult to move from there to this opportunity. Nonetheless, I think there's great potential ahead, and I believe I can contribute. So.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? Any questions from the representatives online?
Madam Chair.
Representative Hicks?
Mr. Five, thank you for being in attendance today, and Ms. Weiser, thank you as well. I don't think there'll be a lot of questions asked today because if passed, it'll go to the full council, and that's probably where a lot of the questions may come from. So if there's nothing asked today, and if you're passed, that's probably the reason why. Okay. Thank you, sir. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Hearing no questions, roll call vote, please.
Randall Hicks,
Yes.
Mark Randolph,
Yes.
Patrick Freeman,
Yes.
Sandra Golden.
No.
Madam Chair, you got 3 in favor and 1 against.
We have 3 in favor, 1 against. TR 22-047 passes. Mr. Five, as Representative Hicks stated, in order to give all of the National Council representatives an opportunity to ask questions, we ask that you would be in attendance at the pre-agenda on Saturday, March the 26th at 9 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
TR 22-050, a tribal resolution of the Muskogee Creek Nation authorizing the principal chief to execute a contract with Capel Solutions for the benefit of the Office of the Attorney General. Sponsor, Mark Randolph.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion for due pass from Representative Randolph. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Hicks. Discussion?
Can we get some time to Mr. Dillinger?
Mr. Dellinger, if you'll come to the podium, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for allowing me the opportunity to come before you. Our office back in, I believe it was back in the fall, received a grant from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Smart Prosecution Innovations, Prosecution Solutions Grant. And I guess to summarize this, it gives us an opportunity to go in and update our case management system, our files. And the great thing about this opportunity is it allows us to create an electronic system. So we're cutting down on paper. We're cutting down on time too with this opportunity from prosecution by carpel. You'll have the ability, or our office will have the ability, to go to a screen on our computer and touch it and pull up a file, as opposed to walking to the back of the office, picking it up, pulling it out, and opening it up and reading it. So it's really about those things, making things easier for us. And also the important thing about this is it has a mechanism associated with it that will allow us to enter into agreements with other state, local, federal agencies to share information. And I think as we move forward with McGirt, that's going to become even more important, to have the ability to share information with other agencies. So this will give us the ability, again, not only for our support staff to be able to pull cases and take a look at them, but also our attorneys, our prosecutors mainly will be able to go into court with a laptop or an iPad and have the case with them electronically instead of a large paper case to carry around and multiple cases, basically. So it's really just something to, I think, to get us into the 21st century and to upgrade our system. It's before you because there are some issues in the agreement that I've spelled out in the legislation that that we felt the council needs to know about before we enter into a contract. Well, I always try to point those out to you, like indemnification and paying attorney's fees and those types of things. We tried to get those negotiated out, but the company would not agree to take those out. So it's before you for that reason. It's also before you because there is the potential on down the line for an MOU. There's the MOUs attached here. There's no real waivers in it, but potentially it will be an MOU with state and local, tribal, and federal agencies. So I felt like that needed to come before you all as well to get your blessing on entering into those agreements. Now, those agreements are something on down the line as the program and the system is developed. But again, I just felt like now was the time to bring that before you all and let you know about that. So again, it makes our file management system much easier, and it gives us the ability to communicate with other agencies, and it's a lot more environmentally friendly, less trees being cut down. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any other questions for Mr. Dellinger? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Haskins, could we get your opinion on this, please?
I think you all have heard me say before, that as a nation, when we enter into contracts with vendors, we have got to reach a point to where the presumption is not to enter into a contract with a vendor that will not deal with us in the fashion in which we actually should be dealt with. This contract does require us to waive a number of sovereignty issues. But as I've mentioned before, I think you have to kind of go through an analysis. Part of that analysis is how much money could be lost. Well, this contract is going to be paid by federal money. We need to look at whether there's other sources. This is basically the most commonly used unified case management system in Oklahoma, and probably outside of Oklahoma too. They offer a number of other services. There probably are competitors, but I don't know who they are. They're not as significant. So this is one of those rare instances where I would actually look to you all and say, this probably is an appropriate agreement. This is probably something that we ought to go ahead and do. It's not for me to tell you what to do or not to do, but to point out the problems. This is one of those contracts where I worry about, and we do have to lean away as a nation from waiving our sovereignty in all these agreements, because if they go wrong, our ability to enforce them is limited, greatly limited. But this is, in going through those analysis that I discussed with you, this is one of those we probably ought to go ahead and deal with. It's not money out of our pockets. This is an established agency that's well known. This is an agency, it would be cross-compatible with other law enforcement agencies. At this juncture, because of McGirt, I would not be too quick to want to enter into a MOU sharing our case files with other agencies. And the reason being, every time we've had that request, it ends up in a brief. But there will come a time where there should be an open exchange of information with other agencies. So, Madam Chair, I hope that answers your question. It actually kind of pains me to say that we ought to do this because, as a general rule, we should not be waiving sovereignty. Other tribes do not. They simply tell their vendors either you accept our terms and conditions or we'll find somebody else. But I think even in those circumstances, you have to look at the value of the vendor you're dealing with. And this is one we need. The Attorney General's office needs this.
Thank you, sir. Committee, do you have any questions for Mr. Haskins? Committee members in attendance or online? Thank you, sir. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Sandra Golden. Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 3 in favor and 1 against.
We have 3 in favor and 1 against. TR 22-050 passes. NCA 22-015, the law of the Muskogee Creek Nation amending NCA Title 37, subsection 3-505, entitled Employee at Will Doctrine Not Impliedly Abolished. Sponsor is Leonard Gouge.
Motion do pass.
A motion for due pass from Representative Randolph. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, is that the substitute, Representative Randolph?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, substitute. We had a motion from Representative Randolph. We had a second from Representative Golden. Discussion? Mr. Gouge, you come to the podium, please. You wouldn't mind to go ahead and tell us what this is about?
All right, thank you. Looking at the benefit of employees and looking at trying to encourage our citizens, in which we tell them all the time to go out and get an education and come back and work for the tribe. To try to make it fair and impartial, I like to see the due process be applied to all employees equally and fairly to give them a fair environment to work in, other than using the at-will. Now, I've had a couple of meetings with HR. They discussed some options and some disagreement with a few things. I think we have resolved some of that through this legislation we have now. But the main purpose of it is just to treat our citizens who are employed fairly, give them the opportunity to do their job. And if there's a need to release an employee, there's a process for it.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions for Mr. Gouge? Ms. Golden?
Mr. Gouge, I applaud you for coming forth with this, and I support it wholeheartedly. I have a concern about some things that aren't in here, but it may be in something else, I don't know. But I agree wholeheartedly that our citizens should not be afraid of losing their jobs. I've had people call me who were dismissed for at will, and they had no due process. And to me, that's a violation of civil rights. We should not be doing that to our citizens. And those who have issues with alcohol and drugs, they should be given an opportunity to go to treatment because it's an illness, and they should be able to come back and work for Creek Nation because we do not want to lose our citizens. And I just see this as a very important step toward doing the right thing for the employees of the nation.
Thank you. I will add, HR did make the comment that they do have things in their policy to take care of members or employees of that nature. So they do address that.
And how do we address the supervisors or the managers who abuse their authority when they don't provide due process and they refuse to let them continue? Is there any, how do we do that?
I don't want to overstep my boundaries in speaking for HR, but HR, I talked to HR in one of our meetings and they did discuss there's training. They got training set up, and I think it was for next month. They're going to start training with their management staff.
So they haven't done this before.
I can't say that. I can only talk about what they're going to do.
Do we have the HR available?
Ms. Cully, if you'd come to the podium, please.
I'm sorry, I should ask that first.
Hello. What questions can I answer for you?
What do we have in our policies as far as new managers, new supervisors coming in? They haven't had training in the past for giving due process to their employees.
We've recently started, I'd say about a year ago, establishing managers' meetings in regards to policy training and some best practices that need to be established throughout the nation. In fact, that's where Josh is right now. He's the manager of HR, but he's currently training employees or managers and supervisors as we speak. We've come a long way in establishing some processes that I feel like are employee friendly. We've educating people more on FMLA practices if it does deal with any health related issues, and drug and alcohol does fall under that. In my instances, there have been a few who've had to take off for drug and alcohol related instances, and the managers are very willing to wait for them to come back generally. Sometimes if it goes over 3 months, we kind of talk with the employee to see what may be best established for them, because there are some times that there are drug and alcohol related matters that go in 6 months, 9 months. And we generally talk with them, and every chief who's been here, not only Chief Hill, Chief Floyd, Chief Ellis, they have established that they waive their limits to come back. Because if you resign, it's 6 months to come back, or if you're terminated, it's a year. And the chiefs have so graciously let those employees come back before those time limits if it dealt with something of that nature.
One more question.
Okay, one more question, Representative Golden.
So in the past 30 days, how many people have been terminated for at will?
In the last 30 days, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
One that I know of.
One that you know of? I'd be glad to speak with you after. We can address some of those things if it's truly at will.
Yeah. The employee said termination for at will, and that was it. No due process.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Cully? Representative Hicks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Cully, is there not a process in place right now for any infractions?
Yes, there is. We have a progressive discipline policy that is established, and it already has 3 steps. We give a manager, depending upon the nature of the infraction, whether it's misconduct or job performance. Every situation is different. Some go up to the full 4 write-ups, depending on the infraction. If it's of a criminal nature, we will terminate for at will if it's a major infraction. But majority of the time, I would say 95, 99% of the time, progressive discipline is applied.
Okay. And I think the term earlier that was used was, if this was passed, then it's going to treat all employees equally and fairly. How is that? How is that going to treat everybody equally and fairly if this is passed?
I think that was some of our concern that we had talked with Representative Gouge with, is sometimes we come into situations that health and safety are, what's the word I'm looking for? Health and safety can be an issue. And when I say that, on the health side, we've had a person who had a medical condition that could contaminate or infect other people being in that office, and that employee would not leave the office. And that in turn, because of a health and safety reason, had to be terminated. We've also come across some criminal things or safety of a department that we've had to terminate as at will.
Okay.
I will say 99% of the time, we do try to apply progressive discipline.
Okay, so HR and Mr. Gouch have met and discussed this policy.
We have met twice. Yeah, we've met twice. If I could interject some of my opinions with some of the legislation that I kind of have issues with is page 1, line 24, where it says the federal and state laws. I would like for our Justice Department to truly look at the language of that. I know in previous trainings that we've had, the AG's office has had us refrain from using that terminology. Also, on page 2, line 14, there's the line that it says all steps and levels are referenced when meeting with an employee that they want a human resources representative present. One of the issues with that is it oversteps the line of our Employee Protection Act. The Employee Protection Act states that the employee has to have some place to turn. They have to have an outlet to be able to have counseling or find some place that they can turn in their adverse employment or their grievances. And if an HR rep is present, it makes them feel like they don't have a place to turn. And so the Employee Protection Act does state us in that line of succession that they have to have a place to turn. And I think in previous years, we've had an AG opinion that stated the same thing.
What is the last chance agreement?
A last chance agreement is basically letting an employee know if I've been written up, say for tardies 3 times, before that 4th, on that 3rd write-up, we're going to do a last chance agreement so that employee knows, hey, this is your last chance. If you're in violation of the tardy policy, it's your last agreement. The next step is termination.
Okay. What I have in the substitute, I'm just going to read it. It's on page 2, line 6D, implementation of the last chance agreement, which violation of may result in termination of the employee. So if it's a last chance, it's your last chance. There's no may, right?
Exactly.
So should that be marked out? Should the word may be marked out? Because the way I'm reading it and the way the loopholes are to be found, the word may does not mean you will.
You're exactly correct.
So, and the last thing I have, Madam Chair, is Mr. Haskins, have you reviewed the policy and your thoughts? Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Excused.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It's so hard as a lawyer to take a middle position in talking about issues like this, because there's always 2 sides. The thing that immediately comes to mind if you're an employee and this passes is, I get 4 strikes before I'm out. But I will tell you, as someone who has had employees before and have had to let people go, there are people on occasion that need to be let go because of criminal behaviors or dangerous behaviors. And it's not always driven by drug or alcohol issues. There's just some people that don't belong in that particular position. So you have a sense for an employee that this is a wonderful thing, but you balance it off versus the interests of the nation. I've always expressed concerns relative to budgetary issues. If we have to have budgetary layoffs, you really can't do that anymore under this policy. So you can't riff individuals based upon cutting budgets across your departments, because now they have a right to multiple warnings, and it's behavior related versus cost related. I appreciate what Mr. Gouge is doing, and I really do, and I wish that I would have been with the National Council long enough to have sat down and talked to him. There are things in our laws that could use improvement. For example, really what we're discussing is a right or remedy for an employee that thinks they're being unjustly terminated. Well, as our laws are currently written, and Kevin and I have talked about this before, the moment that you're terminated, you no longer have any rights, so you can't appeal. So at least in theory, the way our laws are written, you can only appeal your pending termination before you're actually terminated. And with Representative Golden, she actually has a very good point that a lot of what she was discussing is what she perceives to be abusive department heads who are using termination because of personality issues or not giving people second chances or directing them to an HR model that will help them deal with the issues in their life. I do believe that we can fix the policies that we have without going maybe as far as abandoning an at-will process, and let's create those due process rights before you're terminated, before someone can throw you out the door. Then you need to have a dispassionate panel of someone to sit down and look at it and determine whether their termination is appropriate or not. But that's something that we can do without going as far as abandoning an at-will process. And at-will employment pretty much exists throughout America these days. And, having this having this for-cause termination has been abandoned in large part, throughout the country. And even to the more extreme than that aspect of it is, well, if you go to contract employees for their protection, well, if you go to that, you're going to have to pay a lot more money to get people to occupy those spaces. So, there's the elation of an employee saying, I get 4 shots and maybe potential abuse on their behalf. You can't do anything to me. You write me up and fine, I get 4 chances versus the interests of the nation saying there are times we need to get rid of somebody. And I think the reference to state and federal and tribal law is if somebody breaks crimes. One of the things that we are learning through McGirt is the slow passage of the clock relative to prosecution issues. You could have somebody that has committed a serious crime, an act of violence, whose case may languish in our courts for months and months and months. Well, in the meantime, if this person has a propensity to violence, you put them on a plan, and you strike one, and we're waiting to see what the outcome of your case is. Well, you may have somebody that really is a danger to everyone else that's involved, present in the room. And workplace violence is, unfortunately, it's not uncommon. So people that are really unhappy and are angry about being written up, and maybe they're on strike 2 or strike 3, they're coming back to work with you every day, and you have to potentially face someone who he may not be healthy for whatever reason. So, there's both sides of this coin. But if I would simply urge that if for some reason this does not pass, I think we can fix what Representative Gouge and Representative Golden are talking about. I really do. I think we can bestow rights upon citizens that precludes retaliatory firing just because they don't like them, or because an employee, kind of stands up for themselves and indicates what they believe is right. But I will say for our HR department, they have been good. They've been responsive. They're rated very, very highly with regard to unemployment carriers. They're all ranked in that regard, HR departments. And our guys do a wonderful job of acting as almost like an intermediary. So after everybody exhausts all their other remedies, HR can become involved and say, no, this is wrong. Termination's inappropriate. This individual's got a good point. Maybe we should move him to another department, and get him away from the personalities that are involved. But I just wanted to offer that for HR, and I understand both sides of this. I truly do. But it happens with changes of bosses. It happens with changes of administration. Sometimes these things happen, but we can build in safeguards for employees that don't go so far as to throw out employment at will. So unless there's anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Representative Randolph? Mr. Haskins, thank you.
I don't have any questions. I just have something I'd like to state. I brought this issue forward in 2016, and one of the things I felt was important was job security also. Um, we have a lot of educated Muskogee people, and I've heard it over and over again, especially in academia. You know, we've heard, I've worked under three administrations, and we've received letters, we've received complaints about wrongful termination based on personal reasons. And one thing I've seen for myself sitting on council, decisions are made around here, and I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody, but I've seen decisions made that are based on personal versus professional reasons. And that's why I support abolishing it. I think, the flip side, like you were saying, we can go back and institute something that deals with things specifically, but it's broad. And I think if we were to maybe look at it at the history, we're getting examples that are seem really extreme, like riffs and all that. How many times have we used it for that? You know, and I sit in on some of the meetings and there isn't data. There's no data. So I'd like to see, how many times they've had to use it and for what reasons. And another thing I'd like to state before I end is I often look at management, and to me, we hire people as directors and managers to oversee employees and make sure they're doing their job. That's their job. That's why they're paid more than other people. And if they're not doing their jobs, we should be holding their managers and them accountable. And there seems to be a lot of things. I know there's enough smoke that I've seen that there's fire here because of that. And I just believe everyone has a right to face their accusers. I've seen instances to where I've looked at documentation to where, in my thinking, it was just, someone sat down one night and went back and backdated it and said this and that. And then we have our employees come in, they don't have documentation, so they're just let go. There's got to be some way we can find a way that serves the people and the employees. And I realized through this meeting, sitting with Mr. Gouge again, that a lot of times because we are separate branches, we are seen as the voice of the people, and we're going to see the executive branch talking more for the institution. And so that's where we're always going to kind of disagree some, and that's understandable. And I do think we can create something good, and we need a lot of training. But I would just say, for myself, I support abolishing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Randolph. Representative Freeman. Mr. Dellinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I think probably a lot of what I would say would kind of mirror what Ms. Colley and Council Haskins had to say. I think the biggest thing I see is just that, I think Ms. Colley said it best maybe, it's kind of a case by case situation. You can have some things that aren't as serious and those that are severely serious. And like Mr. Haskins said, someone needs to be terminated right then and there due to the gravity of the issue that's occurred or the action of the person. So when I looked at this, that was the biggest thing that I saw was, this might be okay, but I think there's got to be the ability for management here at the nation to be able to terminate somebody if it's justified. There are those situations, and I didn't see any language in here that allows that. So that's my biggest concern. If something could be added to, maybe you have the best of both situations where people can go through if things are minor, but if there's a really serious crimes committed or something like that, something very extreme, I think the nation needs the ability to terminate someone as well. So that's kind of my biggest concern with the legislation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Representatives that are in attendance or online, do you have any questions? Representative Hicks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I applaud Mr. Representative Gouch for wanting to do this, and I do think we need to protect the employees. And as Representative Randolph stated, we do get phone calls of our staff being mistreated. But he also made the comment, and I think he hit the nail on the head when he made the comment: professional or personal versus professional. And I'm sitting here thinking we can change policy all day long, but if you don't have the correct management to do what they're supposed to do and take care of the employees, then no policy that we create is going to do anything. So I think it's more than just policy. It's got to filter down to the employees to actually do their jobs and do it correctly and hold them accountable. That's where it needs to be. The management needs to be held accountable, and we have to start trusting the right people to do what they're supposed to be doing. So I don't know. Like I said, I know where Mr. Gouge is going and what he's wanting to do, but hearing from both attorneys too, maybe there's a little bit more work that needs to be done on this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hicks. Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph,
Yes.
Patrick Freeman,
No.
Sandra Golden,
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
No.
Madam Chair, there's a tie vote, so you get to vote. Thomasini Hola Osborne.
No.
Madam Chair, you got 2 in favor and 3 against.
We have 2 in favor, 3 against. NCA 22-015 does not pass. Next item on the agenda is referred legislation. 22-019, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation amending MCNCA Title 37, subsection 2-123, entitled Estejati Veterans, Muskogee Nation Honor Guard. Sponsor is Leonard Gouge. Mr. Darnell, funding source for this NCA?
Funds are available for NCA 22-019 from the Interest on Permanent Fund.
Interest on Permanent Fund. Okay. I need a motion to approve the funding source.
I make a motion to approve the funding source.
Representative Randolph approves the motion for the interest on the permanent fund.
Second.
We have a second from Representative Golden. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman,
Yes.
Sandra Golden,
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 4 in favor and 0 against.
We have 4 in favor and 0 against. NCA 22-021, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation authorizing an appropriation of funds for the installation of natural gas utility service for the Muskogee Creek Nation GSA warehouse and safe space facility. Sponsor is Galen Cloud. Mr. Darnell, funding source.
Funds are available for NCA 22-021 from the Capital Improvements Fund.
From the Capital Improvement Fund. Okay, committee, we need a motion to approve the funding source of Capital Improvement Fund.
I make a motion to approve the funding source for funding from the Capital Improvement Fund.
Thank you,
for NCA 22-021.
Thank you, Representative Randolph. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Hicks. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman,
Yes.
Sandra Golden,
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 4 in favor and 0 against.
We have 4 in favor, 0 against. The NCA 22-021 will be funded through the Capital Improvement Fund with council approval. Next item on the agenda is other business.
Madam Chair.
Representative Randolph, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to add NCR 22-006 to the agenda.
We have a motion from Representative Randolph to add NCR 22-006 to the agenda. Do I have a second? I have a second from Representative Hicks. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Sandra Golden.
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 4 in favor and 0 against.
Okay, the motion to add NCR 22-006 to the agenda passed. NCR 22-006, a resolution of the Muskogee Creek National Council declaring support and solidarity with the people and nation of Ukraine. The sponsor is Representative Anna Marshall.
Motion do pass.
The motion for due pass from Representative Randolph. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Golden. Discussion? Ms. Marshall?
I'm really not crying. My allergies are acting up. I believe it was February the 24th. And if any of you watch CNN News, you saw all these women and children leaving Ukraine for one of the border states, whether it was Romania, whether it was Poland, or wherever they could seek refuge. And as they were walking, it reminded me of our women and children on the Trail of Tears. I mean, they're not exactly the same journey, but they're certainly similar. And when I saw that, it just kind of like, oh my God, it's still happening today in some part of the world. And so as I saw that, I thought, you know, we keep saying we're a sovereign nation, we're this reservation, and we're going to practice our sovereignty, and we have a nation-to-nation responsibility and relationship. Well, this might be one way for us to exercise that, to be able to say that we're this nation in Oklahoma that has a responsibility and a relationship with the people of Ukraine, whether they are the indigenous peoples, whether they're the Crimean Tatars who are in exile themselves in their own country. We've got the Crimean, the Karaites that are there. We have the Krimchaks, we have the Romanians, and we have the Urums, and they're all indigenous to their own land. So we have indigenous people there just like we have them here. And why not stand in solidarity and support these people who are being run over, who are being invaded, just like we were some years not so long ago in a land that's not that far away. And so when I saw that, I called some of my friends that I used to work with in New York. And as I shared that, they were saying, we saw the same thing too, Ann, because of our relationship with you and knowing your ancestors' journeys. We saw that too. And so as I pondered it, I talked with the speaker and I said, is there a way that we can do a resolution where we can stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine? And he said, yes, we can do that. And as I started checking around, no indigenous nation here, because I checked with the National Congress of American Indians, and no nation has reached out to the Ukrainian people. And so we'd be the first to do this. But when we look at all the international laws that we have on the books, just like we have a bunch of laws here too, we know that these are crimes against humanity, and it's a war crime, because it's a detriment to who they are, and their impacts are going to be far-reaching into the future. It's not going to be just ending next week or next month. We're talking about years into the future, and we see remnants of what happened to us with the intergenerational trauma. So we know that all the things that Russia has done to Ukraine, it violates all the international laws because it's an act of aggression. It violates the UN Charter, and it violates human rights for all people. So the General Assembly, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, voted unanimously to condemn the invasion of Ukraine and called for Russia to withdraw its forces. And that's what we would be doing. We would be supporting the General Assembly. It's not listed in the resolution, but we would stand with any and all people and organizations, whether it's living in civil society, all the organizations, to be able to do that. Because millions are being displaced as we see it now, and they're going to become refugees, and many of those are women and girls. And some of the women are taking their kids across to other countries, but they're going back to fight. And it wasn't too long ago that the women fought for equal rights to serve in the military, and today they're proving themselves. And so women are shouldering the responsibility of getting their children and other people's children out of that country into safe territory. So for me, despite what's happening in Ukraine, I still believe that the international community can make a difference. And as we collectively work for peace, because we are a sovereign and a free nation, that we can stand in solidarity with Ukraine. We can all learn from the human stories which have demonstrated the pointlessness, the futility, and the devastation of war. And protests and acts of resistance and human understanding are being joined worldwide. So why don't we join worldwide? The signatories of this statement from the call of many across the world for this to end. So I hope you'll join me.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Ms. Golden?
I think this is really a great act on our behalf for Ukraine. At the same time, it hurts my heart.
I can hear you.
It hurts my heart because we have citizens who are being treated like this right now, and we can't do anything about it because no one has the resources. So in that respect, as far as solidarity, I feel like it's a good thing, but we need to clean up our place first, and we haven't done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. Any questions again or concerns, comments for Ms. Marshall? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph,
Yes.
Patrick Freeman,
Yes.
Sandra Golden,
No.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you got 3 in favor and 1 against.
We have 3 in favor, 1 against. NCR 22-006 passes. Okay. Should we go presentation first?
However you want to do it first.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from Alpaca Enterprise and Little Snow LLC. Mr. Fields, if you come to the podium, please, and we're going to allow 10 minutes.
Często jasno dziewczynuska. My creek is a little rough. I'm still in like education phases. My name is L.S. Fields. I'm here to present on behalf of Alpaca and Little Snow.
Mr. Fields, talk right in here. Can't hear you good.
Is this better? Better? Okay, thanks. Greatly, Madam Chair, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to present today. We believe that if you read the material that I give you, it's a good background of what we have done some preliminary studies on. What we're looking at is just as an industrial facility to be located here in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. We've done some background checks. I've done some background checks on some property, and we did some other reviews of different areas and municipalities, and we feel like the property here in Okmulgee is well situated for what we're looking for in terms of like an industrial facility to be located here in Okmulgee. My background is trouble work. I do trouble finance. I do corporate finance. I have my esteemed associates on Zoom that are willing to answer some questions in regards to the finances that is brought forth, and also in terms of the manufacturing facility in a broad overview, and also have our attorney, Robert Roche, also can discuss the overall implications of the manufacturing facility here brought forth to you, so you can review and make a good determination that this project is a good project to bring forth. I've had some brief discussions with some tribal council members in a broad overview of the project, and so the project in question is a tremendous economic asset to the community, a big asset to the tribe. So we're just in the preliminary phases of doing some preliminary work, and we bring this project, the ideal project, before you for review, and we greatly like to have input from the great Muskogee Nation. Robert, are you online with us?
Yes, hello. Thank you, LS. I appreciate that introduction. My name is Robert Roche. I live in Muskogee, Oklahoma. However, today I'm getting ready to fly back from Washington, D.C. from some business. So if I have to drop off here in a little bit, I have to board my flight. So I apologize to everyone, but hopefully some of our other team members can answer questions. What I'd like to stress to the Great Muskogee Creek Nation is we've been working on this project for some time with the state of Oklahoma. We've looked at several different communities in Oklahoma, and we've already received a package of incentives for several $1 million from the state of Oklahoma, including cash incentives from about $1 million from the governor's closing fund. And then we've also received incentives that would pay for our property taxes up to $8 million in the first 5 years that the state of Oklahoma would incentivize. This project, as you can see in some of the documentation that LS has provided to you, would create several hundred jobs in the manufacturing environment. So they're those good industrial jobs rather than, service jobs. The average salary is between $40,000 and $50,000 per year. So they're good paying jobs. And, there will be several $100 million of investment. Steve Hummel, who's on this call, is our finance guy. And we've also got Mike Houston on the call, who is the CEO of this company and can answer lots of questions about operations. We've had several calls with LS, and he's talked, as he said, with several of the tribal council members to identify this property. We think it will be a great site for us for several reasons. I know Mike Houston can expand on that, but we think that this would be a great deal, and we would love to continue our dialogue with the Muskogee Creek Nation about this project.
Okay, Steve, are you on with us?
I am, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I also want to introduce Carrie Williams and Robert Farrington at Broadsword Investments that will be available to answer any questions. Carrie is from Oklahoma and lives in Dallas and has run very successfully the investment banking firm. But at this time, I would like to introduce Mike Houston, who can go over quickly, since we're limited in time, the scope of this opportunity, and thank the great Muskogee Creek Nation. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. And I'll just give you a top line view of what the business is. Like Robert Rosh mentioned, that we are in negotiation with several different locations, and we're trying to keep some of the details and company names out of the topics right now. But basically, the main part of the business is a plastics manufacturing operation. We're making plastic products or plastic composites that would be then sold to another manufacturing company that would then put those products into a finished product, sold to consumers, sold to industry, and into the medical applications as well, and has many uses thereon. The technology that we'll be using is a proprietary technology from a sister company or a company that the principals that are starting at this company own and operate today. So we're taking some proprietary technology and bringing it to the United States and be the first of a kind that to produce this type of product. And we look forward to doing that in Oklahoma. As what LS shows, is we are going to be putting in quite a bit of money in investment. We're looking at a total of $300 million over a several-year horizon, and over 300 jobs as well that we look at trying to develop too. And as we get started, that number could go up. It depends on how much area we have to expand in the Okmulgee and Muskogee Nation area. But we do look forward to seeing what opportunities we can join in with the Muskogee Nation and see if we can push this project forward for the Okmulgee area. And I'm available for any questions, should you may have any.
Representative Randolph.
I see how many jobs it would create, like over 300 jobs. Is there any way that our people would be prioritized if we were to join in?
Hey, Mike, let me answer this question.
Yes, we have just. Okay, very
yes.
good.
Yes. In normal course of work, we can structure the employment process as we can funnel applications to the Muskogee Nation. So with that being said, it's kind of like whenever you buy a house, you put like a first right of refusal. But in this case, we can put like a first right of employment. So we can have Muskogee Nation citizens come through the front line, per se, of the application process.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Ms. Golden?
Yes. I'm not sure I understand you're wanting to do business with Muskogee Creek Nation within our boundaries. That's why you're here?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we looked at some properties around.
Properties within our
And
boundaries.
you have what you call an inventory of property. It's titled Pecan Grove. It's like on the airport road and going west. This preliminary site review that you have like 193 acres there owned by the tribe. That particular piece we're looking at because one, you own the property, and the other is it is what is called in the opportunity zone, which means investors that invest capital will get certain tax advantages over the course of 10 years. But that's on the back end of the financing. But it's a prime example of a best opportunity to bring business incentives on your boundary / reservation.
So within our boundaries, if we had property taxes and business taxes, would you be paying taxes to the Muskogee Creek Nation, or would you be paying to the state of Oklahoma?
We'd prefer to be paying taxes to the Muskogee Nation.
Representatives on the committee, do you have any questions for Mr. Fields or anyone online for Alpaca? Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Snow, actually what you're asking from Muskogee Creek Nation is the $12 million?
Let me address that. In review of the sources and uses of funds, we have a capital need of infrastructure of $6 million. If I believe that's highlighted in blue. And then in the overall financing request is what is called gap financing. That's $12 million. So that'd be a request of $18 million.
there's ways and means of addressing monetary participation with the Muskogee Creek Nation. One is having a debt scenario illustrated. One would be a debt equity scenario illustrated, and the other would be maybe a stock swap or some sort of involving debt. But we're looking for other ways and means to reach that goal of 168 million or 69 million. We have yet to address the Okmulgee Economic Development Authority. Normally, municipalities have sets of funds as well that they could obligate from their tax-generated income that is generated. So we have not addressed that issue yet. We wanted to come to you guys first, since the property in question that we're looking at is your property. And what we'd like to do is, if it was humbly possible, have a request before you saying that you would give the Muskogee Creek Nation the ability to discuss and negotiate this manufacturing facility on behalf of both parties, so we can just discuss and negotiate ways and means of trying to get that facility here in Okmulgee. It isn't non-binding. It's just putting our corporations together and putting your tribe together and see if we can come up with solutions to address the property, address the opportunity of a manufacturing facility, and also address what synergies we both can bring from the corporate standpoint and also to the tribal standpoint.
So basically, what all are you requesting from Muskogee Creek Nation?
For now, on our
for
piece
now
of paper, for
later.
now, it's just have allow us to have dialogue with the Muskogee Nation to reach the 18 million, to reach proposed land lease. It isn't, and also synergies of like an OJT program, synergies of bringing forth the employment office, and also find ways and means of raising capital to make the project work here in Okmulgee.
I know Mr. Houston didn't really go in detail as far as the product. He just said plastic materials.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what plastic
I
material?
can and I can't. I can let Mike. Would you care to elaborate, please?
We would prefer to get some non-disclosure agreements in place before we go to that. But it is a high-use disposable product that's used by consumers, industry, and can be used in medical applications as well.
Okay. I did send an NDA, non-disclosure, to here at the corporate office. So we're just waiting on that NDA to get signed. And once the NDA is signed, then we can fully disclose the information on our side as well as the Muskogee Nation.
Right. Because I'd like to have more information for me to do some research and.
Yeah, we'll be glad to provide anything you want.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fields, for coming, and those who are representing Alpaca Online. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is discussion. It will be MNGE Gaming Quarterly Report. Mr. Chris Ray.
Madam Chair.
Oh,
I'm trying to make a motion to go into executive session for the MGE GOAB report.
we have a motion to go in executive session from Representative Hicks. Do I have a second? We have a second from Representative Golden. Discussion?
Madam Chair, I believe all we need online is council reps online, council present, attorneys are fine.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman. Sandra Golden. Madam Chair, you got 4 in favor and 0 against.
We have 4 in favor, 0 against to go in executive session, and we are in executive. Okay, no action was taken. Next item on the agenda is announcements. Are there any announcements? Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? I have a motion to adjourn from Representative Freeman. Do I have a second? A second from Representative Golden. All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Benediction, Representative Freeman, if you would please. Thank you, Representative Freeman. We are adjourned at 5:02.